Okay guys, so everything's finally kind of come together for me on this kayak. I was waiting on a couple last pieces before I wanted to do a walkthrough video on the way that I set up this Frontier 12. And so what we're gonna do, we're just gonna start in the top and work our way back and just kind of go over the different things that I did with my Frontier 12 to kind of customize it. So in the front here, you can see I got the Anchor Wizard. There's a plate here that NuCanoe offers that allows you to put the Anchor Wizard easily here on the bow of the boat. Just 2 screws where the existing handles were. Obviously I got a little tow line here. Coming back through the boat, got some front storage here, a dry box. Inside the dry box here, I've got both my troll motor battery, which is a 29 amp hour, and then in the front I've got a 9 amp hour that I'm using just for my components. And just wanted to separate the two, knowing that the trolling motor was going to pull that deep cycle down below 12 volts, and eventually at that point things like my fish finder probably wouldn't run anymore. So that's what I did here in the front. All the way from the back to the front, I ran a cable, and it was easy just to kind of turn this boat on its side and feed that cable from the back, and I've got a plate back there that I'll show you, and then run a heavy gauge cable all the way here to the front to hook up just the troll motor, keep those cables clean and out of the way. And then moving back here, we've got our front storage area. This holds 2 3700s, and I've got 2 switches in here. One is for my nav lights, and then one is for some aux lights that I put underneath the storage here. I ended up putting like 3 feet of white LED strip, and then between the nav lights and then putting a stern light on this, technically she'd be legal for fishing at night. But and then I took all of my cabling for the Garmin unit here, and put a little through port here, kind of a water resistant through port that all my cables could punch through, and then everything is kind of just being addressed right behind the storage bag here, and I've pulled those up with some Gorilla Tape. The way that I did the 2 switches is I used a 3-pin quick release connection down here. So essentially I was sending my positive and my ground up to the storage unit, and then I had a home run come back so that I could separate the switch for my front nav lights. Talking about the fish finder here, yes, it's a giant fish finder. I don't really need 9 inches on a kayak like this, but this was actually a better option for me because the bass boat behind us here, this is the unit from that. So I ended up just buying a separate cradle for it and a sonar, and when I want to switch this from being in the kayak to the bass boat, I can just pop it off and go throw it in the other boat. What's really cool about that is that I like to do a lot of charting. So here in the kayak, I can obviously do a lot more exploring that I wouldn't necessarily do in the bass boat. Allows me to mark those different creeks, main river channels, etc., you know, in the kayak first, and then have a better run at them when I go run a little bit skinnier in the bass boat. This 93 SV Plus has a lot of features in it, side imaging being one of them. And I wasn't going to bring that into the kayak. Really, I just wanted depth and GPS to be able to do those charts. So I ended up purchasing a much cheaper sonar. It's the Garmin GT8. It's an 8-pin. So I ended up getting a 12-pin to 8-pin reducer from them. And then that is an in-hole, very small, like 2-inch round, 2-inch wide sonar that I've got inside the boat here, just broadcasting through the plastic, giving me depth, and depth with the GPS signal is really all I'm looking for in this kayak. So coming back a little bit further here, we have our casting bar. The nice thing ultimately about the casting bar is that if it's something that you want up, maybe you're going to be going through a little bit of bumpy water and you want to stand through it because you're fly fishing through some riffle or something like that, you can have it up. Or if it just all around makes you feel better to have this in place. And then if you don't want it, you can loosen up the hinges here, lay it down out of sight. You can see the way that I have my roto grip here on the side holding my paddle. It works for it to be both in the up and the down position and don't end up losing my paddle rotating between the two. Coming back to my foot pedals here, these are the NuCanoe aluminum foot pedals. They're really nice. When I use wader boots in here, I typically just let my feet rest, but as you guys know that paddle a lot, when you are really trying to paddle, it's nice to be able to have that point of contact here on your feet to really drive in and get a little bit more thrust with your paddle. Second part here of the Anchor Wizard, obviously this is the receiver. My line runs all the way up to the front where it deploys off the front. The seat here, it's one of the NuCanoe things you see people talk about a lot. It's the adjustable height 360 chair. The ability to adjust the height, a lot of guys ask me, you know, how do you go up and down now? Well, it's something that you actually set when you build the chair. This chair is really nice to just be able to rotate in. It's nice when I have the troll motor on the back, to be able to kind of pin sideways and reach my hand back here and grab the tiller. Really enjoyed having this seat, and also I like the height of it. Being in the highest position, you're kind of already standing up when you start to lean forward, and so it's just a lot easier for me going up and down. The paddle here, this is a Bending Branch Angler Ace. This paddle, super lightweight, really strong paddle, really strong blades. I've already used this thing pretty much as a tool to kind of pry myself around. Here in the back, I have this Omega rod holder right here. I've got one in the forward position, just to, more so for when I'm just rigging up. I found that's what I've decided I like when I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna be working on a bait or retying something. I like having this forward facing rod holder here. Otherwise, for storage, I'm gonna be back here on my black pack where I've got 3 rod holders as well. Inside the black pack, this thing will hold 5 3700s. I've got 4 in here, and then I've got my streamer box. That leaves a little bit of space here on the side where I might throw a drink or throw some scent, something along those lines. But a lot of storage here inside the black pack. As I mentioned, the 3 rod holders. I typically am going to carry a spinner and a bait caster with me, because between those two I can pretty much do what I need to do. The net is this Yak Attack Net. This net is brand new to me. I was able to use it the other day, net a couple fish, but the main thing about this Yak Attack Net is that you've got that forearm support there, and it's a long net. So the idea being kayak fishing, you're not wanting to lean over as much, and so get a lot more reach on that net to bring that fish in, and then it also closes down there. Save yourself a little bit of space here in the back of your boat. Lastly, let's talk about the transom here. One of the big things that people talk about when it comes to NuCanoe is how every model new has a transom on it. This particular transom here, what I've got is the outboard motor bracket on it. It's a much beefier steel plate. Recommended when you really go past the troll motor phase. And so I just recently got this micro anchor from PowerPole. This thing has really been handy. Used it on a couple trips now, and it does the trick. It really does. People have asked me, well, what about when you're in 8 foot of water that's moving fast? Well, you've got your limits, just like anything. You know, you got to look at what you're dealing with here. But for those situations where you're in 3 or 4 or 5 foot of water, and even if the water does have some current to it, it does just fine. But typically, if you're river fishing like I do, you're going to try to find that eddy behind the rocks, and you find yourself kind of a slow place that you can, you know, park back in and not really have this thing working too hard for you. But it will buckle down if you want to be out there kind of in the middle of the open water. With this motor bracket, I was talking about the battery that I have up in the front for the troll. Essentially just release these C-clamps here, and behind me here I've got the 30-pound 30-inch shaft troll motor that I use, so I could pop that in. On the side here is where I put this plate to plug my motor in, and just kind of, like I said, keeps everything clean there. But option number 2 is to throw 30-pound 30-inch shaft troll motor on, and got this little hook here because I do have the motor retract kit installed on this as well, which is a really nice feature when you see, oh man, coming into some shallow water, you can just pull that motor retract cable, Troll motor shoots straight up on the plate here and gives yourself all the clearance that you have. The bottom of the boat's going to touch before the troll motor does. And then the last option would be to use the cart system here. And in order to use the cart, I do have to pull the outboard motor bracket off, but with a 11mm wrench and hand twisting this nut on the inside of here, this thing comes off in about 30 seconds. It's worth it when you've got a little bit of a haul to the bank to pop this in. This guy works really good, clips into the boat, snugs itself in there. What I really like about the way it's designed is that it'll pivot with the back of the boat as you're going through this kind of rough terrain, etc. So the last thing I want to show you guys here is the fly reel dock. This thing is coming really clutch. You can actually strap 2 reels on here if you want to, but I've got one right now. This is a 9-foot rod. On the 12-footer, just the distance between your tip protectors in the front of the boat back to here perfectly sits a 9-foot rod right here at the very back of the track. Keeps it kind of clean and clear of everything through there, but very easy for me when I'm fishing to hit that tip protector in the front and just flex it around and lay that reel right here and lock it in. So this has been a really cool feature that I've enjoyed actually having on this boat. So anyways, well, thank you guys for watching the video here on my Frontier 12. If you guys have any questions about it, how I did anything, definitely just drop me a comment below and I'll get to answering those. So.